We have an all-time crossover today because if you look at the CFP 12-team format, the coaching ages might have a story to tell here, which means we might need to pay attention to, is this a young man's game?
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Howdy, y'all. Hello, all. Welcome back to Locked On Oklahoma State. And we have a crossover today, so we also need to bring in Locked On Utes, JT Wistrcill. Brother, man, how are you feeling today, my guy?
I'm fantastic. Anytime I get to record with you, my friend, whether it's a squad show or us squaring off one-on-one, always a blast. Appreciate you having me on.
There it is. Absolutely. I'm excited for this one. We've got a lot to discuss here, but we also have to remind the fine folks out here that this is partially brought to you by Game Time today. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, for $20 off your first purchase. Get squared away with Game Time, the bee's knees for all of your ticketing needs. All right, buddy. So now we get to kind of dive in here. And whenever you're looking at the coaching landscape as it pertains to the CFP format, which is what both of us have aspirations for our team to get to this next season, fun little trinket of thought here. There's 4 coaches that were in their 30s, under 40. There's 4 coaches that were in their 40s, under 50. 3 coaches in their 50s, and 1 singular coach over 60 in the entire 12-team format playoff, which begs the question, is this now a young man's game as Mike Gundy enters his 58th year of life? And your main man, Kyle Whittingham, I think he's, 65, correct?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So we've got some guys that have been in the game for a long time. They've been on the sidelines at their respective schools for a long time as well. Do you think that there's validity to the fact that it could be a young man's game, or could either one of our older statesmen find a way to still navigate in this landscape? What do you think, bud?
There is no doubt to me that it's becoming a young man's game, but that does not mean that the old dogs don't have 1 or 2 more tricks left up their sleeves. I think it's really interesting. You look at Kyle Whittingham, worst year he's had in a long time. Mike Gundy, worst year he's had in a long time. Kirk Ferentz at Iowa, another one of the older coaches, right? They were pretty irrelevant in the Big Ten last year. And look, I think this is an opportunity for the older coaches to really try and make one last stand, maybe 2, because if not, Gundy and Witt, Ferentz, maybe even included, could all be gone. We're seeing Bill Belichick try to step into this now, so he's another one. At the end of the day, the reason I think all of these guys can make one more stance, and obviously Belichick is a big key in all of this because he's maybe the greatest football coach we've ever seen, is because these guys know ball. And at the end of the day, they have adapted. Both Kyle Whittingham and Mike Gundy, if we can focus back in on them, in the last 3 years have led their teams to conference title game. Both Oklahoma State and Utah fell victim to older quarterbacks not performing up to their standard. And other older players as well, maybe not stepping up as well too for Utah or Oklahoma State. But I do believe that both of these teams can have big years next year and make it back to the Big 12 title game because, simply put, these coaches have done it before.
Bro, I thought this was going to be a nice, polite, kind, amicable ordeal, but you're bringing up older quarterbacks like you're trying to get the veins in my neck to pop out, all right? This is not the way we're supposed to start this, but I will jump on board here and talk about the fact that I think the old dogs have new tricks, especially as it pertains to Oklahoma State, primarily because this is an unprecedented time in Cowboy coaching where Mike Gundy fired literally, physically, almost everybody. If you had a pulse and got a paycheck at Oklahoma State last season, you're not really here anymore. You're gone, right? So sometimes you need that kind of shakeup. You could make the argument that maybe this sort of shakeup should have happened potentially a little bit sooner, and it allowed us, not allowed us, it actually forfeited our capabilities in this previous year because we had some complacency. So the shakeups that we have on the defensive side of the ball, offensive side of the ball, at all of the position, I think it does accentuate the fact that Mike Gundy understands there is a new lay of the land. And as much as he doesn't like the transfer portal, much like Dabo Swinney, he doesn't like the landscape of college football and how they're turning into employees. You do still have to find a way to navigate or get out, right? And Mike Gundy's not ready to quite get out yet, and I don't blame him. Same with Kyle Whittingham. There was probable information out there that when you name the head coach in waiting style of thing and you're 65 going in 66 years old, that potentially this could have been Kyle Whittingham's last season. Yeah. And theoretically, okay, if you go off of the Border Regents timeline that they gave Mike Gundy, we went a couple hours without a coach, right? So there was some trepidation in both Mike Gundy and Kyle Whittingham coming into the season. Clearly, they're both returning. As I just said, O State's cleared out its entire staff. What do you think Kyle Whittingham has done that gets the same level of excitement in Salt Lake City?
Well, not complete coaching, just tear down, like you talked about with Mike Gundy, but offensive side of the ball, offensive coordinator resigned during the season. So, and you let go of the interim, and you get a new running back coach in there, a new wide receiver coach. So a little bit of a makeover. I'm glad Utah kept the defensive staff in check. The defense was not the problem this year. It was the quarterback position more than anything. I mean, even the wide receiver coach, Alvis Whitted, was let go. I thought he did the best he could with a bad situation. It all comes down to quarterbacks. That's what really hurt for Utah. And Utah, their offense is to get more innovative and more creative. So what did they do? They brought in Jason Beck, who led the fourth best offense in college football last year. And what was the other thing that Utah didn't have? They didn't have a quarterback. They brought Jason Beck's quarterback with him, Devin Dampier, who was the only quarterback in the country to throw for over, I think it was like 2,500 yards and rush for 1,000 yards too. So a true dual threat presence there. That is getting back to something too. Kyle Whittingham loves to run the ball, so now you'll be able to do that even stronger. But just, I think for Witt, in order to succeed, you have to give Jason Beck the ability to run his offense. You cannot hover over him and say, no, you can't. Like, Devin Dampier did have 12 turnovers last year. You're going to have to live with some of those turnovers in order to get a high-scoring offense that Utah had last year. So I think the way for Witt to succeed is you have to take a hands-off approach even more with the offense. Let Jason Beck be Jason Beck, and the results could be big in 2025. I mean, for you, what do you think the Cowboys need to do in order to kind of bounce back and be a contender?
Well, I do think that we've done more than enough to at least put us in that conversation, which we're about to get to here in segment 2. But lastly, I will say, as it kind of sits with the older generation, the younger generation, you threw in Willie Fritz into this conversation as well. The fact that these old dogs now have watched this thing from their universities, like Whittingham and Gundy, I think the biggest thing that I find reassuring that both of them came back is they're not going to want to go out with those seasons. And to me, that is absolutely massive. Mike Gundy, you'd mentioned, worst season basically in his history. We have had a comparable record in 2005, his first year, but the last time we went over in conference play was 1994. So you could theoretically say this was our worst season ever, even before Mike Gundy. So this is a really good scenario, I think, for both of them because they've come up through the system. They've seen the different layers and iterations of Utah and Oklahoma State, both from a facility standpoint to a recruiting standpoint to different iterations of the league, right? Because the Big 12 went through some changes at different points in time as well. Obviously, we've been reunited again with Colorado, which I do find pretty amazing. Deion Sanders is another dude that I think does bring a good light. But you also, just like we talk about, blue bloods help drive some of the TV numbers. When you have some of those coaching names like Mike Gundy, Kyle Whittingham, that accentuates that blue blood style of conversation, at least from the coach's perspective, which sets up big marketability for games. Kyle Whittingham versus Mike Gundy, it's always going to be brought up as a big game because it is. Mike Gundy versus Deion Sanders, right? Kalani Sitake versus Kyle Whittingham. These are always going to be big games, but it's partially because of the coaches that are coaching there. So I'm glad that they're both back because they've got some abilities here to teach some new tricks, right? Old dogs, new tricks. They have the capability of doing that. So we are going to talk about why we should both state our cases for our Cowboys and our Utes as to why they could go from the bottom of the Big 12 to the very, very tippity top of the Big 12 this next season. But before we do that, we do have to remind the fine folks out here that sometimes life is stressful, right? And to remove as much amount of stress as possible, you might need to talk to somebody. Therapy is very helpful. It can be a game changer. It can help manage stress. It can improve sleep, communication, makes everything in life much more effective. Finding the right therapist and fitting sessions into busy schedules can definitely be an issue. That's where Talkspace comes in. Talkspace, the leading virtual therapy provider, makes getting you help faster, easier, and more accessible with the affordability behind it as well. With Talkspace, signing up is very simplistic. You can get matched with a licensed therapist who fits your needs, usually within the first 48 hours. It is convenient. You can have sessions from the comfort of your home and even message your therapist between appointments. Plus, Talkspace is covered by many insurance plans. And for most insurance members, there's a 0% or $0 copay. It's never been easier to prioritize your mental health. Right now, you can get $80 off your first month with Talkspace when you go to Talkspace.com/LockedOnCollege. Enter the promo code SPACE80, that is SPACE80, to match with a licensed therapist today. Go to Talkspace.com/LockedOnCollege, all one word. Enter that promo code SPACE80 to get $80 off your first month and show your support for the show. Whether it's Locked On Oklahoma State, Locked On Utes, that is Talkspace.com/LockedOnCollege, all one word, promo code SPACE80. Get your mental therapy health game on today. All right, buddy boy. I guess I did forget the little thingy, my hobbies, but it is what it is. We are where we are, and here we are. We're rolling. We're going.
Hey, I tried to jump the gun and jump into our contender segment earlier, so we're making it. We're making it.
I like it. All right, so here we are. Yes. And because of that, I will allow you to go first and state your case as to why. And actually, you know what? In all fairness, you asked me.
I did.
Why I think Oklahoma State could get back to Arlington. And I think it's primarily because of the shakeup, like I just mentioned. But beyond the shakeup, what's even more important, and as much as it does hurt my heart to say this, defense in college football starts, ends, begins, whatever you want in SEC country. Okay. I hate saying it too, but it is what it is. And the NFL draft and the NFL players that come from the defensive side of the ball in the SEC are kind of, a clarifying reflection of that capability that the SEC coaches do have. Oklahoma State's new defensive coordinator, Todd Grantham, he has brought his entire cast of characters from dating back to when he was in Mississippi State and Florida. So from 2016 to 2018, that staff is kind of, they've stayed together at certain portions of their careers. And it also goes back to the recruiting angle. A decent number of the transfers that we've got, whether they be from Oregon or LSU or Ohio State, these dudes that we've been able to bring in, we're not used to getting, right? We can call a spade there as well. Oklahoma State is not used to getting a bunch of SEC dudes, right, that have several years of starting at SEC levels coming to Stillwater, America. That didn't happen by accident. It happened because Todd Grantham brought a bunch of coaches with a decade, 15 years, 11 years, 9 years worth of NFL coaching. And they also have adequate amount of time coaching in the SEC as well, which is why the transfer portal that has come to Stillwater is filled with SEC dudes. The defense in Stillwater should be the calling card, and that is why I think the Cowboys will have the ability to contend for a Big 12 title and get back to Arlington.
First of all, I'm very, very disappointed in you for you to give the SEC their flowers.
Well, you know what? I wasn't going to mention the Cowboy killer, Isaac Wilson. All right, so I'm not going to do that for you.
I'm very disappointed to hear you give the SEC their flowers. We are Big 12 members. We're not supposed to give the SEC any credit. But no, you are absolutely right when you talk about the strength of their defensive lines. I mean, just this weekend, we watched Jalen Carter, a former Georgia Bulldog, absolutely wreck everything the Los Angeles Rams were trying to do. But yeah, for Utah, it goes back to they lost 7 of their last 8 games, Utah did. When you looked at why, the main reason is quarterback play. So even though Devin Dampier making the jump from New Mexico up to the Power 4 level, so Group of 5 to Power 4, that's still a jump he has to make. Based on his success, I believe he's going to be able to do so. And I even believe, like Devin Dampier to me, Utah was 5. They won 5 games last year. Devin Dampier to me is not like, just him himself, a 4-win difference. The difference is good to competent quarterback play on top of the lessons that a Kyle Whittingham learned in trying to do his best. Look, there was some weird things going on behind the scenes at Utah. Kyle apparently said that he was going to be done during the year, and then the year didn't go as planned, so now he wants to come back. So then Morgan Scalley doesn't get to be the head coach in waiting when he thought he was going to be. There was who was going to be offensive coordinator, eventually land on Jason Beck. So there was some drama and some stuff. I believe Utah's moved past it now, but if this year is another disappointment, I feel like very much so we're going to get that statement that Kyle Whittingham is stepping away, even if he doesn't want it. Like, I think that is what could be happening. Obviously, Oklahoma State, that could be the same thing for Mike Gundy too. So that's the type of pressure that both of these guys are under. Now, thankfully for Utah, they've hopefully solved that issue with quarterback play. And Utah's lost other pieces too. But you get your entire starting five back on the offensive line. Need to make a couple tweaks and changes to make it better. Cody, has you've known and talked about before, just because you get all the guys back up front doesn't always mean it's going to lead to a good thing.
Yeah.
But I do believe that Utah has the pieces here. And honestly, I even think the schedule, there's some tough games on here still. But it's once again, there are no games I look at and I'm like, oh man, this is 4 losses guaranteed for Utah. I feel better about both Utah and Oklahoma State going into 2025 than I did ASU last year to tie it back to that point. And so I think both of them absolutely have a case to get to Arlington.
How dare you steal my scheduling thunder if there's a potential saving grace? But again, I will add the caveat that we don't really know because the Big 12 is more bipolar than my ex-old lady, as I like to say, because it's the truth, right? You don't know what's going to happen in the Big 12, right? We just saw that with Arizona State preseason 16th place, and then they win the whole thing, and it really wasn't even all that close, right?
No.
Hats off to Iowa State, but I think a lot of us could make the argument that the second best team in the conference was BYU.
It was.
The hottest
guy, but I've said that openly. I think it's pretty obvious BYU is the second best team in the Big 12 this last year.
Well, and so yet another reason why the Cowboys could make a run at Arlington next season is because of our schedule. We open up with UT Martin, then we go to Eugene, Oregon, and obviously we just watched them in the playoff. They're terrible, so that's a W. Then we play Tulsa. We got Arizona at KU. We've got Baylor. We've got Houston, K-State, Iowa State, Cincy, Texas Tech, UCF. We don't play Arizona State. Yeah? Mm-hmm. We don't play Utah.
Yep, luck out. Yeah, you guys don't want the Utah smoke. We know that. It's okay.
We do. Oh, get out of Dodge. Well, here's the Utah matchup could come in Arlington. That is the only possibility of us meeting up. So, again, our schedule, the fact that we're loaded with a bunch of SEC and Big Ten guys that have transferred into Stillwater America with all the new coaches that have a long NFL and SEC pedigree. Those are some of the things. The quarterback battle, I think, is going to be fun, right? We just brought in Haas Haney, and there's not very many quarterbacks in America. I don't know what Devin Dampier runs, but I do know that Haas Haney runs a 10, 6, 300-meter dash. So speed is not everything, especially at the QB spot. No. But we've got some veteran experience now with Garrett Rangel. Zane Flores has been in the system for a couple of years now. Mayo Smith carried himself well when he did get out on the field. And then, of course, we have the new dude coming in Haas Haney. So offensively, I think we're going to be in a better position. The schedule, I think, does set us up to be pretty successful.
Yep.
Right? There's nothing on our schedule that I think is murderer's row. Baylor's obviously going to be good. Oregon's going to be an issue. Texas Tech, Kansas State, but outside of that, right, going to the Bouse House is a little sketchy. I will admit that. But the schedule, I think, also sets us up for an opportunity for us to potentially meet up in Arlington. And that leads us to the end of this segment 2 here before we get to segment 3 is it is a shame that we're not playing because I think Smack Talk last season the game equaled what the buildup was supposed to be. Now, both of us kind of derailed the rest of the season after that game. Yeah. But the buildup, the Smack Talk, the rivalry kind of thing, it did live up to expectations, even though y'all did come away with the W. It was a packed out Boone Pickens Stadium. It was loud. It was wild. It was exciting. And, it didn't go our way. But at the end of the day, for us to get back, the fact that we don't play each other could build a little bit more because I know initially, like you, I was like, well, this is bull honky. We don't play Arizona State or Utah, right? Mm-hmm. That kind of stinks. Those are some of the teams you want to play. But then you have the realization of, well, if we're talking about a potential rival and we beat Utah in Arlington, that could build it up even more.
Oh, it absolutely could. I mean, to beat Utah and Oklahoma State, those are two – yes, down years last year, but those are two of the Big 12's biggest brands of recent memory. So a win in the championship game for either side over the other would be absolutely massive. And for Utah, I'm really disappointed we're not playing Oklahoma State. To me, of all the Big 12 teams, and we're going to play Baylor for a third time this year. I got a lot of mutual respect between Baylor. but I really think it was an offseason built up of these are going to be two of the contending teams in the top of the conference. Utah fans can be a little vocal. I think they felt you and a lot of Utah fans and with the talent they were returning on paper. This is why me and so many Utah fans were high on this team coming in the year, felt like, hey, we deserve to be the preseason favorite. Oklahoma State fans were mad because you guys felt like, hey, we just made the conference championship game. We got all this talent back too. This is our conference. We deserve to be the favorite. So everyone had that game September 21st circled in Stillwater. And also that was a big moment for Utah because Cody, I love you, but I remember you and many people were questioning, hey, can the team from the Pac-12, which in the past has been known for not being as physical a brand, come in and compete like that? And Utah was able to win that game. We were all fired up. And guess what? That ended up being Utah's Super Bowl because then the season went completely off the rails after that. So when you combine just all of that off-season excitement and hype into what that game meant, to me, obviously BYU is Utah's top rival in the Big 12. And maybe Colorado just because how often they played, but easily of the new Big 12 teams, I consider Utah's rival Oklahoma State. I wish we were playing every single year, and I think it'd be a lot of fun for Kyle Whittingham and Mike Gundy to routinely be facing off for as long as they're still coaching each side.
Look at JT doing his best to provide some bulletin board material. Y'all heard it here first. JT Wistrcill just said that Oklahoma State was extra Charmin soft. So, hey, if we're going to build up this rivalry, I'm going to do my part, sir. All right. Speaking of doing our parts, when it comes to NFL action, it is heating up. We're getting close to a Super Bowl, and we still have opportunities to capitalize on our monetary gains, baby. And we're going to do this one the right way, JT. Look at me grow. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. FanDuel is the bee's knees for everything that you need, and Game Time's even better than FanDuel. When we're talking about capitalization, when you're trying to get tickets for the NFL playoff action, nothing is going to be better than Game Time. The energy, excitement, and connection that you're going to have with other fans is going to be completely unmatched. The thrill of seeing your team reach the top of the NFL, it's a memory you'll never forget. This year, Game Times is going to make it easier to create those unforgettable moments with their new features, Game Time Picks. It filters out all the fluffy stuff and shows you just the best deals on the best seats so you can focus on what matters the most. You can use Game Time Picks to grab tickets for upcoming playoff games, and it could not be any easier. You can find Super Bowl deals that get more incredible and more amazing as the playoffs continue to get better. The Game Time Guarantee gives you a complete peace of mind. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. But again, create that account, redeem that code LOCKEDONCLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Not to be confused with FanDuel, JT. That's all we're going to have for this one right here. From everybody in Locked On Oklahoma State country, thank you very much for making this your first listen. You could be anywhere, so happy you choose to be here. JT, you're locked on Ute country. Very happy that we get to do this and have these crossovers. It's a crying shame that our teams aren't great in basketball.
Yep, not great. We still beat you guys. So we're not dead last.
You know what? I walked into that one, but that means we're walking out. All right. Love you. Goodbye.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't believe you took that shot. How dare you, sir?